The McLaren McL 35M is something of a unique car in the 2021 Formula One season, and this is all down to the emergency regulations introduced in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic. Formula One and the FIA froze the technical specifications of all of the mechanical components on the car, and teams were only really allowed to upgrade them by using these special development tokens that each team got two, and they could change the nose or a bit of the monocoque or another part of the car. McLaren, however, was not allowed to have any tokens, and the reason for this is the team switched from Renault to Mercedes power, and the change of those power units was such a fundamental difference to various parts of the car that they weren't allowed to do anything more to develop the car. At the heart of the restriction on McLaren's token allowance is this. It's the Mercedes Mguh and Turbocharger system. Mercedes, when the new power unit regulations were introduced in 2014, took the brave decision to split their turbocharger in two, with the compressor sitting at the front of the V6 engine block and the turbine at the rear. In between the two, in the V of the engine, is the Mguh itself. This means that the front of the Mercedes power unit is significantly different in shape and design to that of the Renault. To accommodate the Mercedes design in the back of the McLaren would have had to have changed the rear face of the monocoque. They'll have had to put in some different pipe work, some different ducting, and that's a pretty substantial change. On top of that, the shape of the battery pack, the hybrid system battery pack underneath the fuel cell, is completely different between the two designs, so they'd have had to change that part of the monocoque too. Then at the back of the V6 engine block, where it mounts to the gearbox, of course on the Renault you've got both compressor and turbine hanging in there, and that's what McLaren designed their gearbox casing around, whereas Mercedes, they only have the turbine at the back, so it would have had to change the gearbox casing for that reason as well. So McLaren had to make quite a lot of changes to those mechanical parts, and that's why the team aren't allowed to make any further difference in terms of token spend. So when you take a look at this year's McLaren in the garage, it's no surprise then when you see the brakes, the front suspension, all those mechanical bits and bobs, they're all exactly the same as last year. But that doesn't mean the team haven't really been doing anything to develop other areas of the car. Aerodynamic development is free, as is cooling, because you've got to install a new power unit. So check this out. You can really see the difference between the roll hoop ducting on the 2021 car and the 2020 car. Now the 2021 car has a lot less cooling behind the driver's head compared to 2020, and that says to me that the Renault power unit requires a little bit more cooling than the Mercedes does, and that could really help out McLaren. The side pods haven't really changed in size, so there really isn't a lot more cooling going on. It does mean what's going on under that bodywork is completely different between the two power units, but we already looked at why that was. So with the mechanical components all pretty much frozen other than that power unit change, McLaren have spent a lot of time developing lots of really interesting bits of the aerodynamic package on the car, and you can really see that on the brake ducts here as the team very helpfully spray flow-vis all around the front brake duct. While the external shape may look quite similar, look at that internal channeling. It's very different on the 2021 car, and that's something of a trend right up and down the grid. A lot of teams are playing around with those front brake ducts, and that flow-vis application says that McLaren are really going to be looking in a lot of detail how those front brake ducts perform. So I'd expect to see some changes before they shut off development and turn their attention till next season. It's a similar story looking along the flanks of the car, looking at the barge board area of the car. Here, another trend that you're seeing up and down the grid this season, these Venetian blind sections. We'll talk more about them on a later edition of Tech Talk. McLaren tried them a little bit last year, but they've really gone for it in 2021. You can see the 2020 sort of standard MCL 35 barge board here, no Venetian blind section at all. They did try it a few times in qualifying, but in 2021, as I say, really gone for it, double stacked section of Venetian blind. The driver's going to have to be really careful not to give them a biff as they go into close battles in the midfield pack though. One question that comes in quite a lot about the McLaren is it's a Mercedes-powered car, so why doesn't it carry this big bump that both the Aston Martin and the Works Mercedes have on their rear bodywork? As you can see, it's not at all present on the McLaren. Well, what they've done is they've just packaged that engine cover really neatly around the bulge caused by the new Mercedes plenum. And if you're wondering what that bit we're all talking about, the plenum is, it's just this bit. We've just got this shot from free practice in Bahrain. Bahrain, you can see this carbon fibre section just at the bottom of the screen there. That's much bulkier this season on the Mercedes power unit than it was in 2020. Mercedes won't really tell us why that is at the moment, but I suspect they've done a lot of work on the intake tract of the new V6 engine, and that could net some big results for all of the team using that Mercedes unit. But of course, the big thing that everybody noticed in pre-season testing about the McLaren MCL 35M was its diffuser. The team coming up with a really interesting solution to get around the new regulations that reduce the size of the diffuser strakes. We've talked a lot about it already, and a lot of the teams up and down the pit lane are taking a very close look at that.